Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we have got a great show with a good friend, and because he helps widowers, and that's an amazing kind of a niche thing because not a lot of people are out there helping guys who've lost a spouse. So we're going to talk about men rebuilding after loss. And I like to think about rebuilding, Heidi, because men kind of try to fix things, and rebuilding their life, I think, is probably a good way to look at it. So introduce our guest today, Heidi.
I like this idea, Mom, of men rebuilding after loss. And our guest has been on other shows with us, podcasts, and our cable show, if you want to look him up. His name is Herb Knoll, Knoll. He is an advocate for widowers, a professional speaker, a columnist, and an author. He has written a book called The Widower's Journey, and he has a podcast also called The Widower's Journey. And he is the founder of Widowers Support Network, a private Facebook group for men. And he also has a public Facebook group for men called Widowers Support Network. He is also a former drill sergeant for the Army. I always say that because I say to a certain extent, he's still a drill sergeant in a softer way for widowers. And he is a widower himself and a good friend of ours. So welcome to the show, Herb.
Well, thank you, ladies, very, very much. It's nice to be with you today.
It's great to have you on, and your name came up for us because we had a gentleman from your men's group who actually got in touch with us and said he wanted to do some service and come on the show and speak for men because your group had actually saved his life, right, Heidi?
Yes, he was a former Marine who has some children and found himself a widower fairly young. And he said that if it wasn't for you, he doesn't know where he'd be today.
Wow. We've been very fortunate to help more than a couple men who have admitted to us that we had an influence in their deciding not to commit suicide.
Yeah.
With our numbers growing the way they are, there's chances are there were more than two. But right now, the Widowers Support Network members only Facebook page. It's just for men. It's up over 1,360 or something like that.
Wow.
Men from 32 countries. So we're spreading our wings, and we're healing hearts and saving lives, is how I say it.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's wonderful. What are the major questions that you see men asking that come into your network, and what do you see the major problems?
Well, there's several, as you can well imagine. But one is getting over the grief. One is the shock of grief. One is the inability to manage their grief. And then as they mature as a widower, and then it's the dating and it's the relationships, and she's not like my wife, and they're out there looking to duplicate rather than celebrate their wife's life by living theirs, and let the ladies that they see be themselves and not try to measure up to his standards that he had from his previous wife. And I always tell the men, would you want to be compared, to somebody else's deceased or previous husband? Of course not. So I give them myself as an example. My deceased wife was Ukrainian, and now I'm married to a Cuban. Well, there isn't two nationalities further apart than Ukraine and Cuba, but I love them both. So the thing that I've noticed the most about men is that they see themselves as fixers.
Mm-hmm.
And if wives will frequently just tell the husband, this is broken, and he knows what to do. She doesn't even have to say it.
Yeah.
He's got a job now. He's got to fix it.
Right.
Well, when they're widowed, they see themselves as being broken. So now they want to apply fixes, and they're impulsive, and they don't think things through. Or they will say, well, I understand that there's a lot of men who've made a lot of bad decisions, but I'm different. I'm anchored, right. I know what I'm doing. And they don't. And they don't know what they're doing. And they make impulsive decisions, and most of them are bad ones. One that comes up more times than I care to admit is they will marry the first girl they date.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, what's wrong with playing the field, guys? I mean, and they do it time and time and time again. And I said, do you not see the carnage along the path? Do you not see all the men who made the same move that you're about to make? Give it time if you're going to marry the first girl. Let her, see who you are. They feel abandoned by their friends, their family. They feel abandoned, and frankly, and I'm hard on them. Maybe that's the drill sergeant in me.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
I'm hard on them because, I will say to them, it's not all about you. And your grief. You have children. What about them? You have in-laws. You have parents. You have, your wife had sisters or brothers or friends. It's not all about you. So it's different, and you have reasons to grieve, but you let other people help you grieve by doing something that they can count towards their grieving. Like make yourself vulnerable. I need help with this. I need help with this. And then let somebody else do it. And you'll find that you will be, it's part of your healing process to be able to do that. But the dating is a big issue. But then you get into small things like, how long did you wear your wedding band? And that is a common question on my Facebook page.
Wow. And what is the answer usually? I mean, it varies or?
It varies. It
Okay.
varies. Some men, just last week, some man took his ring off and he had that shadow ring. It's the indentation because he's worn it for so many years.
I like that, the shadow ring.
And he, there were times when you wish the shadow ring wasn't there. But one man, he arranged to have a black wedding band in place of his wedding band, and he wore that black one to symbolize something. I said, okay, well, what's it symbolized? He goes, I was married, but I'm available, because the black meaning the color of death.
Right. Wow.
So in his mind, he was saying, I'm available, but I was married.
To me, it would mean to me, if I was a single woman, of, okay, this guy's in serious grief.
Yeah.
I would look at the wedding band and say, this guy is definitely not dating material.
Let me ask you a question. What about internet dating? What are you finding with that?
Well, I met my wife on the internet, on eHarmony.
How long did you wait to go on eHarmony?
A little bit over 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Some men don't wait that long.
What stops men from reaching out and getting peer support? Is that a big issue?
Yes, it is. And it's a sad issue. Americans don't recognize men's grief. When I wrote my manuscript and I had it paraded around to different publishers, nobody would. A few of them wanted it, or they inquired, but they weren't ready to publish it. And they actually said to me, "Men don't read books." I said, "What?" I said, "They can't read what's not published." But the publishing companies they're focused on the ladies, and that only 20% of men will be widowed in this world. some of them twice, but 20%, 1 out of 5.
Wow, that's not very many. That's
No,
kind of
it's
a
not.
low number.
No,
Mhm.
it's 4 out of 5 ladies will be.
I have to say,
Wow.
Herb, it's interesting you're saying that since I lost my husband 3 months ago. I happened to get invited by widows to go I'm invited tonight to come over for cheese and wine.
Right, right.
I get invitations to go out.
Yeah.
I went to dinner with somebody on Monday. A friend of mine and her husband, I watched the Super Bowl with them, but women invite women.
Yes. And women are better at it. Men, because of their egos and because men are thought that I'm supposed to be strong, I'm not supposed to shed tears, and if I do, I'm weak. And so they don't solicit support. They don't admit their need. And then they go home and they hide behind their curtains in the dark of their living room and they eat TV dinners and they cry.
Mhm.
The men on my website, on my Facebook page rather, these men, the one dominant thing that I've identified about them is they loved their wives.
Oh,
I mean, these men loved their wives, and they're torn up with
right.
the absence of her,
Well, that's
and
why
that
they need support. I would think that the men that didn't love their wives don't need support. They're out dating somebody else.
yes, but because their relatives and family abandoned them,
Oh,
they don't get the support. That's the
okay.
problem. The
Wow.
U- the UN passed a resolution a couple years ago that every year in May there is the International Day of the Widow,
Mhm.
Mhm.
not widowers.
Wow.
So even the international community doesn't recognize the need that these men have.
So
Yeah.
Herb, is that why their friends and family are abandoning them because they don't feel that they need support? Because they're men?
Because they were never taught how to help.
Mm.
None of us. In fact, even the churches of America, I've talked to priests from many different clergies, many different religions.
Mhm.
The curriculum in the seminary and the Bible colleges are devoid of grief.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the places that we instinctively go to at a moment of need and of grief are ill-equipped to answer the call.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think that's true. Tell people how they can get a hold of you and your website and all that.
Okay, well, widowerssupportnetwork.com. The Facebook page, there's two of them. There is the Widowers Support Network dash members only, and that's just for men, and men who are widowers, men who are caregivers, men who had an unwanted divorce.
Oh,
There was
interesting.
I have men who've been engaged and the wife died during the engagement,
Mhm.
um, and gay men,
Mhm.
and then the one that's for the public is Widowers Support Network on Facebook, no members only. Okay, so Widowers Support Network members only for men, Widowers Support Network for everybody else.
Mhm.
And then the podcast is Widower's Journey, and we're having a whole lot of fun doing the podcast.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
listening to one of those. They're great.
yeah, we've
Yeah.
we've got great guests
Mhm.
that I'm really really happy. It's reaching 26 countries so far.
That's
Awesome.
great.
Awesome.
Herb.
And your book, tell them where to get that.
Here it is,
Fantastic book.
The Widower's Journey, with Deborah Carr. She's a PhD and head of a department up at Boston University,
Oh,
and Robert Frick. So
And you can get that on Amazon,
at,
right?
on Amazon, or if anybody wants to write me or contact me at herb@widowerssupportnetwork.com and mention Open to Hope, there's 15% off if you want to order the book from me direct.
nice.
Awesome.
But you have to mention Open to Hope.
All right. Well, Herb, thank you so much for being on the show today. Do you want to give one last piece of advice to somebody who's had a recent loss?
Be patient with those who grieve because they know not what they do.
Mm.
Mhm.
And be persistent. you know, I remember one time that there was somebody who said to me, I didn't want to bother you.
Mhm.
And I said to him, I wish you would have.
Mm.
Bother me.
So reach out.
Reach out. Well, thank you, Herb, for being on the show and for all the wonderful work you're doing. It's just amazing. We love you, and we send everybody your way that we find.
Well, thank you. And you ladies are the best. You are the best. I'm so glad I met you.
Herb, thank you so much. Thank you for all you're doing for men out there. Keep fighting the good fight, and we will keep sending men your way.
Okay, very good. All right. God bless you.
And we want to thank
Bye-bye.
everybody for joining the show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.